So what did you make of that? Doctor Who, The Giggle. Hi, I'm Mick and you're watching my YouTube channel, Movies TV Mad. You can also follow me on X at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram, Movies TV Mad X. Welcome to my review of the third and final Doctor Who special, The Giggle. And Russell, you must have been having a giggle when you were writing that. Yes, there's a lot I didn't like about this episode, a lot that underwhelmed me. I thought it lacked depth. I thought Neil Patrick Harris was done dirty. His performance was grand. At times, what we saw was interesting in terms of that puppet show, you know, reciting what happened to the Doctor's companions. It was okay, but I would have preferred to have seen some previous Doctors, seen them in the flesh, and actually saw those previous companions, considering some of them are actually still alive. That actual concept would have been good with the actual actors. I am assuming they didn't have the money to bring people back. They already spent a lot of money on the new intro. The TARDIS interior as well must have cost a lot to make. So there was a lot of in corridors, indoors, but there wasn't much outside. And this is the thing, despite them claiming that they got Disney money now and they can spend much more money, I don't see it. I think these episodes are shot well. The VFX is okay in places, sometimes a little bit ropey. But no, I don't think I'm seeing a show that's costing a lot of money. I don't think there's the money there. But we should really start at the beginning and talk about Neil Patrick Harris's The Toymaker. No rhyme, no reason. Basically, and then they wrapped him up in a box and put him away. I was very underwhelmed for the writing of Neil's Toymaker, but his performance was outstanding. This guy's been acting and performing artistically as a child. He was never going to miss. He was great and mesmerizing to watch. It's perfectly fine to create an analogy of the COVID vaccine and have a conversation within your story, as Russell did, in terms of pro-vax and anti-vax, with nuance and depth. Unfortunately, the whole giggle thing with people getting angry, thinking they're always right, having a chip that will stop them being angry and thinking they're always right and them not wanting it, it was an analogy of pro-vax versus anti-vax. It just wasn't a good one because he hits you over the head with a hammer with it and then he moves on. That sums up the entire episode until the third act, which, you know, what is there to talk about? In terms of the actual stuff prior to the third act, there's nothing interesting to say. As I say, the puppet show was interesting when the Doctor was making excuses how his companions survived somehow. You know, Clara in the last, constantly, repeatedly in the last second or minute of her life. I would like them to revisit that. I have got some fanfic to bring Jenna back because I think she's my favourite, you know, revival New Who companion, and they could do something very, very special with that storyline. And, you know, I like the Puppet Master kept on saying, what should I say, the Toymaker kept on saying, well, that's all right then. And I thought that was interesting, but again, it was just a recycling of what Davros did to him in Journey's End, where he talks about the children of time and how he turns ordinary people into weapons. And in a way, it was just a recycling. But let's come to the truth, because weren't those 3 episodes just a recycling of everything that RTD has done before? And the problem is with these 3 episodes, including The Giggle, they really don't celebrate 60 years of an iconic property. 60 years of Doctor Who. It's not there. Basically, the Day of the Doctor was a better celebration of 50 years of Doctor Who. In fact, Chris Chibnall's The Power of the Doctor, the centennial celebration of the BBC and his final episode of Doctor Who, was a much better way of celebrating 60 years of Doctor Who. And who would have said that any of us would have thought that? If you said to me, Mick, You know, and I've said this before, if you asked me, Mick, who would be the best person back in 2012 to do a 50th anniversary special, Moffat or Chibnall or Davies? I would have said RTD. I would have been wrong, or maybe I would have been right back in the day when he brought Doctor Who kicking and screaming into the 21st century so well, because his intentions back then were honourable, and his intentions today I don't think are so honourable. It's like he's going back to everything he did once and he wants to destroy it. For example, he gave us a beautiful tragic ending for Donna Noble, where she has to lose all her memories of the Doctor. It's tragic, it's beautiful, and it works, and you never undo it. But I pre-warned you many, many times that he would have to undo it for the Doctor and Donna to interact, and that's what happened. And it stuck in the end. Let's not forget about that. So really what you're seeing at the beginning is a very slow, middling story. The social commentary element was botched because, as I say, there was no depth and there's no nuance. Russell T Davies keeps on bragging that he's on to season 2 of his revival of Doctor Who. I wouldn't rush too far ahead, mate. The ratings have been announced at about, 450? So under 5 million, basically. So you'll probably get around, 6 million, maybe 650 if they're lucky, whatever it is. It's okay. It's fine. But those are going to dip on Shooty's Christmas episode because David isn't there anymore. So, you know, we need really to just skip to the elephant in the room and talk about it. Because as I say, there's really not much to unpackage prior to that very, very, I suppose you could call it, an interesting third act. So I have to ask you now, what did you think of the bi-regeneration? Let me know in the comments below. Here are my views. I thought it's a very nifty idea. And of course I came up with a lot of theories and ideas and concepts of what RTD might do. For example, Shooty being another universe Doctor who strays from another universe, from the multiverse. I thought that would have been interesting. And David remains, you know, the old continuity's Doctor, while Shooty is the new continuity Doctor. And they all go their separate ways. In a way, my prediction wasn't so wrong, because I always believed that David would remain. Now, RTD would make it possible for other Doctors to have spin-offs. And one of the things he's told us now, and I don't think you would have noticed it within the episode, that the bi-regeneration means that every single Doctor that we've ever seen, that we haven't seen, exists out there, and there are possibilities, infinite possibilities of Doctor Who spin-offs with previous Doctors. Don't forget, The Timeless Children is canon now. So we can have Doctors that we've never seen before have adventures in spin-offs, or meet Shooty's Doctor or David's Doctor now, right? Because David is the Doctor as well now. Anyway, yeah, we're jumping ahead of ourselves. Anyway, right, so if you didn't watch the episode but you're just curious and you don't care about being spoiled, this is what happened. It wasn't an ordinary regeneration. I told you it wasn't going to be an ordinary regeneration. I suspected this from the day that Shooty was cast, because everyone was celebrating this inclusion and representation, but I said that Russell T Davies isn't woke. Do you remember that video where I said Russell T Davies isn't woke, but he sure hopes that Disney thinks he's woke? And that's the thing. So I knew he would be keeping a bunch of white Doctors, you know, around just in case Shooty didn't work out. And how do you feel if you're Shooty Gatwa, that, you know, the greatest Doctor, a white Doctor, is being kept in reserve? Now, are they planning a unit spin-off with David? Will, you know, would 14 and Rose Noble be travelling around time and space? We know off-screen they'd already done that. Anyway, I'm jumping ahead again. I'm really sorry, I can't help myself. So anyway, yes, a very different regeneration, but not the one I predicted. But I did predict, again, that Shooty and David would be on screen together. And again, I got it right. I know, I'm a smug gat, aren't I? Anyway, so the doctor, the regeneration energy's over him. It comes, it goes. He's just standing there. It's almost like he's become a different doctor with a different personality. He seems in shock, but that's not it. Because he asks Mel and Donna to pull his arms. They do, and we see Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor struggle to come out from him, right? So this is what they're calling a bioregeneration. Now, do you see a problem with a black doctor being born from a white doctor? Now, I'm not like that, right? But I'm just thinking of it from the eyes and perception of a black person who's saying, there's me, I'm seeing myself on the screen now, isn't this great? And I've been birthed from a white guy. Don't you think that's slightly problematic? Even more problematic is when Donna asks him if the doctors come in different colours. Excuse me? Excuse me? Did you actually say that out loud? Yes, she did, everyone. Russell T Davies' dialogue in these past 3 specials, which I'm calling very unspecial, are a bit like your uncle at a teen party, right? You know, let's say one of my nieces, I've got teenage nieces, right? Have a party. Uncle, come to our party, it'd be fun. And I start cracking jokes, and all these teenage girls are looking at me like I'm a weirdo, because I am a weirdo at the end of the day. This is like Russell T Davies' dialogue. That is very problematic dialogue. Let's be honest about it. And it's because he has to mention it and bash us over the head again. Look, I've cast a black doctor. Ain't I good? Give me my Medal of Valor that Luke and Han Solo got at the end of Star Wars: A New Hope. I deserve my medal. I cast a black guy. No, you don't. Everyone deserves opportunities to be artistic, to have self-expression, right? And if they're talented enough, they should have the opportunity to get jobs as well. You ain't doing them a favour. It's their right. Don't you see that? Anyway, as I say, I think the bioregeneration was a nifty idea, but I do think it's somewhat problematic that they've got, let's face it, the most popular doctor of all time in reserve in case Ncuti's doctor goes tits up. Of course, there's been no mention if they're planning any spin-offs with David Tennant. So at this moment in time, there's lots of potential of different Doctor spin-offs. Again, I predicted this, that any spin-offs we get would be Doctor Who centric in terms of them having actual versions of the Doctor in them, as well as, obviously, because of the Timeless Child versions we haven't met and versions that we have. They can even recast Tom Baker, and John Pertwee and, anyone they want. Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy. They can do whatever they want now. The potential there is limitless, so I suppose that's the positive element. I'm just wondering about the whole, hey, this episode is going to be highly controversial and it changes the way we view Doctor Who history. What, because you decided to have a bioregeneration and that's the first time you... So basically, he knew the ratings weren't going to be that high, under 5 million overnight. Just to remind you. So he was first he said, yeah, this is going to be very controversial, right? I can't wait to see what you think. And I did suspect for a minute that he's reaching and it's not going to be that controversial. And at the end, it wasn't. Because the bioregeneration may be different. It may somewhat break Doctor Who lore, but he already did that when he refused to have David wearing Jodie's clothes. I've spoken about this. That was my first red flag when Russell came back. What's very hard to take with all 3 of these specials, especially the giggle, because that was supposed to be the big one. That's the one I thought would be a proper celebration of 60 years of an iconic property, 60 years of Doctor Who. And it wasn't. Basically, Russell T Davies has always been a writer I've looked up to since he brought back Doctor Who. He did something special for me by doing it in the way that he did it. And his motivations were very different. But it does seem like he's come back to destroy all the great stuff he once did. There seems to be an anger, a frustration with Russell. And I really don't know where it's coming from, because he was lauded, because he did good work originally. And now he's come back to undo all that goodness. In terms of Davros, he said at the time, why would I change Davros? You don't break something that doesn't need fixing. All of a sudden, it does need fixing, right? Really, isn't this current day? Because if even Russell T Davies is phoning it in, then you've woken up in some kind of Elseworld, some kind of multiverse. It doesn't matter who it is today. This is what happens. Nothing is as good as you perceive is going to be. I had all this excitement for the giggle, even though I was slightly underwhelmed by Star Beast, quite underwhelmed by Wild Blue Yonder, but an okay episode within a series of Doctor Who, but not as special. So we thought, well, this is it. This is where Russell T Davies is going to cook. And he didn't. He was phoning it in. As I say, let's really get into the crux of the matter. What did I think of Ncuti Gatwa's performance? I thought Ncuti Gatwa was wonderful. He almost distracts from the rest of the episode being so mid and underwhelming. He was very good. His Doctor has a lot of potential. I'm very excited to see him and Millie together. As I said earlier, that with the ratings being so low, well, in terms of an average of today, they're pretty solid, but they're not blockbuster, and I expect them to fall at Christmas. But I am looking forward to see what Millie's character is all about. Ruby Sunday, we know she's in a rock band. We know that she can play the piano. But in the next time footage, I didn't see anything that impressed me. She's kind of a damsel in distress on that rope ladder. There's a lot of smiling. She's looking pretty, but I'm not seeing much depth there. But it is only a trailer, and I will give it a chance. I think there will come a time, if I keep on getting underwhelmed, when we get into the new series 14. If I get bored, I will stop watching, like I did with Disney Marvel and like I did with Disney Star Wars. But at this moment in time, as underwhelmed as I am by the specials, I'm going to give Russell another chance to do his thing. But what's happened is here with RTD, he's given us a lot of gimmicks. But at the very least, his new Doctor does seem to have a lot of verve and pomp and circumstance. But I've seen the new sonic screwdriver, and I can't show it to you. I haven't got it available to me, a picture or anything like that. But it's not even a screwdriver anymore. It's a square thing. Look, it's weird. It's not good. But we'll have to get used to it. A bit like Moffat's sonic shades. And let's be honest, when you see this sonic screwdriver, you are going to wish those sonic shades came back, no matter how much you hated them. So yeah, I thought Ncuti did well. He leapt off out the screen. He seemed like he just seemed like someone you would like. If you met them in a room, he's full of personality. He's interesting. He's going to be wearing lots of different costumes as well, which is a new thing for Doctor Who. Look, we're going to have to wait and see on Ncuti Gatwa. And in terms of David still being the Doctor, for me as a David Tennant fan, that's good news. Whether he gets a unit spin-off or he goes off with Rose Noble or Donna Noble, I think the preference would be Rose Noble. Will we see Rose Noble again? Well, Russell says he enjoys working with her. We will see her again. We will wait and see. That was another problem. They made a big deal about being inclusive to a trans actress, to a trans character, and she was buried away for most of the episode and brought back for a few minutes. There's been a lot of tokenism with Russell T Davies, and it's nothing more than that, because when you cast a black male lead to play the Doctor and you birth him out of the white Doctor, the most popular Doctor in the show's history, and say, we're going to keep him around, mate. We trust you to pilot this show. We do. We're very, very inclusive. That's one of the reasons we cast you, as well as you being very talented, Ncuti. But we're keeping him around. As I say, there are no plans at the moment for a Doctor Who spin-off, right? Unless he's lying and it's in development, because David Tennant is a busy man, so that unit spin-off probably won't happen. I think if you go back to Torchwood and Sarah Jane, we didn't get Torchwood until just before or during season 3 of Doctor Who, the original revival. So yeah, you could be looking at another like 2-3 seasons before we actually see that spin-off. But I think what you will see is David Tennant's Doctor in the series 14 finale, the series 15 finale. I think he'll be involved in those type of things where they all come together, a bit like Journey's End. I think then they will make sure they book Tennant up, which is interesting, I suppose. Look, I think having 2 Doctors regularly on screen, look, although I was just about to say that could be somewhat problematic, I think let's ask that question. Would that work, having 2 Doctors? You know, having these 2 Doctors together, David and Ncuti, constantly together, would that work full time? Well, although I think it's a bit of a problem if you keep on bringing them back, like for finales, and then you kind of think, well, who's the main Doctor here? But I think in terms of if it was a permanent thing, like they were talking about twins. I mean, Russell did answer a question about twin Doctors, and he said, yeah, that would be an interesting thing. We didn't realise why he answered that question, because literally we haven't got twin Doctors, but 2 Doctors now exist, birthed out from another Doctor. But it's all very disconnected, I suppose, now. You've got David who came back, so the old face of the Doctor came back after Jodie, right? But I do think, so it's a bit, look, I think it's a bit disconnected if you ask me, because it's not done like it used to be. You know, regeneration, new Doctor, new Doctor. It wasn't possible before for an older face to come back, and the reasons they gave for that old face coming back just don't sit true. The Doctor's clothes just appearing with him doesn't ring true. The truth of the matter is that Jodie Whittaker should have been the Doctor through these 3 specials. And in fact, it should have been Chibnall, whatever we think about him, that ran these specials, because he proved with the bicentennial special that he could do something. And indeed he did. Better than what RTD actually did, in my humble opinion. But yeah, I'm getting a bit mismatched here. But yeah, I do feel if you made it as a concept, having 2 Doctors, it could work. Maybe that's better than having the Doctor and the companion. I don't think you could have a companion, but if you just had a series with the 2 Doctors, for example, Ncuti and David, I think that could be an interesting concept. I think with David and Ncuti being the way they are, it could be cool. And they've already kind of set up a dynamic like the 15th Doctor hugging this 14th Doctor. So that brings me to the 14th Doctor. Everyone is loving this new emotional 14th Doctor. Again, it's Russell T Davies trying to unwrite what he did with the 10th Doctor, the most popular Doctor of all time. This is what they do. Try and rewrite their own history in case people feel he's a little bit problematic, because the 10th Doctor isn't perfect. He gets angry. He deposed Harriet Jones. We can't have that now, can we? I didn't dislike the 14th Doctor. How can I dislike any character that David Tennant plays? Well, he played a serial killer recently, didn't he? Maybe not him, or an assassin, that Russian assassin. But anyway, David Tennant is such a brilliant actor. And I didn't mind the 14th Doctor, but we had him for 3 episodes. You want me to formulate an opinion here? I'll tell you, the 10th Doctor is superior in every way, because Russell T Davies was on top of his game. And in terms of the 14th Doctor, Russell T Davies isn't on top of his game anymore. He's squeezing in these little story points that don't even make sense. The Doctor is an adventurer. You are asking the 14th Doctor to stand still, live in the TARDIS in Donna Noble's back garden for all eternity. She does say to him in the end, you can go off if you want. Thanks for the permission, Donna. Imagine telling someone who's never stood still that they can't go anywhere. I think next time he's dying, he's probably going to refuse to regenerate. Yeah, I would be feeling like topping myself if I was told after Generations and decades and centuries of travelling around and being told I couldn't do that anymore. It doesn't make any sense. Even worse, when she goes, now I know why this old face returned, because he wanted to come home. Well, he spent most of their lives on Gallifrey. Then they don't even know where they're actually from. So home isn't Earth, and it isn't with you, Donna. So he was calling like Donna's mum Donna. He was calling, I think he was calling Rose Noble his niece or his granddaughter or whatever. But let's think about this logically when we look at it as a celebration of Doctor Who. There simply isn't a standard celebration here. Yet again, we didn't even see Carol Ann Ford as his granddaughter. How difficult is that to do? I saw her. She still looks in good shape. If you could have, Wilfred, right, there, with the actor in such a weakened state and not far away from dying, tragically, well, it wasn't tragic, he died in peace, of course, he was a very old man, but he could do it. So you're telling me that Carol Ann Ford couldn't have come back for a few minutes or a few seconds? Paul McGann's Doctor could have turned up. It could have been exciting. That moment when David has the regeneration energy, maybe Ncuti doesn't come straight away. Maybe we see another version of the Doctor we haven't seen before, or one of the old versions, or anything. They didn't do anything to celebrate 60 years of Doctor Who. It was basically, the giggle was like watching a Russell T Davies series finale with a difference. No build-up, no genuine kind of stakes. You just felt you were going through the motions. And I felt this as we went back to 1925 pre-credits. I saw it. Oh, it's John Logie Baird. That's interesting. Anyway, it's the credits. Well, what's all that about? So anyway, you just go through it, then they're at Unit. And let's be clear here. Stephen Moffat did Unit much better than Russell T Davies ever has. And it's going to be interesting because there were some hints that Moffat may come back to helm a spin-off. I'm not sure about that, but I think the Unit one would be a very good idea because Moffat understands. I think Moffat has a better understanding of Doctor Who. We saw that with the way he had Clara interacting with all the older Doctors. We saw that with bringing Tom Baker back and the writing he did for those, seconds or minutes with Matt Smith. The reason the Day of the Doctor works because it honours 60 years as well as doing its own thing at the same time. And here's the harsh truth about the giggle and probably about the other two episodes as well. It doesn't do that. It just looks like bog standard mid Russell T Davies. Russell T Davies, he was marketing and, talking about the specials that were coming out, like when we were approaching the end of time, parts 1 and 2, he said he started to run out of ideas, and this is why he brought on Phil Ford to co-write a couple of those specials with him. The Waters of Mars is a brilliant story, one of the best Doctor Who stories ever, and I think Phil Ford wrote that with Russell. It wouldn't surprise me if the best stuff did come from Phil Ford, if Russell says he was running out of ideas. But what I see from these 3 episodes is that he hasn't got anything new to say about Doctor Who. Because casting Ncuti Gatwa, having him on Christmas Day dancing at a nightclub, topless, isn't a new idea. And let me ask you another question. We saw this Doctor regenerate and turn up in his underwear. If Jodie Whittaker had done that, it would have come across like they were sexualizing her. It would have come across problematic. Why isn't it problematic when we see a young gay man doing it? It's interesting, isn't it? Because you in the writing, you're kind of seeing, in a way, the perversions of Russell T Davies. Let's be honest about it. He's loving all this, isn't he? And that's the problem. That's another side of it. Because despite what I'm sounding like, I do like Russell. I think he's great. I think he's a genius. But he's undoing all his good work. icons shouldn't come back to their work. So Alex Ferguson, no matter how bad things get at United, should never manage United again, and he's far too old to do so, thankfully, now. But anything's possible at United, right? And I think as excited as I was when I heard he came back, it was a mistake for him to come back. What needed to happen, really after Moffat, even before Chibnall, someone outside of this country club needed to take over Doctor Who and give it new ideas. Because we haven't really had new ideas in these three specials. What we've had is really a recycling of what Russell T Davies has already done. And I'll take back, if I haven't said this, because I did another 2 mini kind of videos talking about the giggle as well, so I'm a bit confused of what I have spoken about already and what I haven't. But what's so different? If I've said it, I apologise, but what's so different about the master's plan as Harold Saxon to con people, to trick people into voting for him as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, to a giggle making everyone angry, making everyone think they're always right? What is the difference? Again, more evidence that it's just the recycling of the same old stuff that Russell has already given us.